Hello, everyone, and good morning. Welcome to this webinar, Powering the Transition, What's Next for Poland's Energy Storage Market. My name is Christina Galan from Redmond Events, and I will be your moderator for today. As I said previously, thank you for joining. We have our first webinar of a series of webinars for our next event in Poland, Redmond Storage Polska, which will take place on the 25th and 26th of February in Warsaw. If you have any questions, feel free to let us know. You also have our colleague Eva. Does anyone also see a black screen only? I don't think so. Let's double check that just in case. But however, thank you everyone so much. A couple of housekeeping rules before we start. So this webinar will be recorded and available to everyone in a couple of days, as well as the presentations approved by our speakers. The duration of the webinar will be 1 hour. We will have two presentations and then we will lead on to a Q&A session. So if you have any questions, you have the Q&A box there that we will try to answer all of them. But it's kind of hard usually most of the time. If you are connecting from YouTube, you also have a chat box there. Feel free to enter any comments or questions you may have, and our team will pass them to us as well. I'm seeing that everyone is already introducing themselves, so please feel free to do it. We highly encourage it. Let us know who you are, where you're from, what is your role in Poland's energy storage market. We're eager to know and get some networking in the chat. So I think I told everything. Yes, the webinar is being recorded. I did say that. So I'm going to move on to our excellent speakers today. We are very lucky to have them today with us. We have Liliana Nowakowska and Jerzy Kuźmiński. I'm going to ask them to do a brief introduction just to get to know a little bit about themselves, and then we will move on to the presentations. So I'm going to start with Liliana today. So Liliana, good morning from Fluence.
Hello, good morning. Thank you for having me. First of all, I'm very happy to be here. I represent Fluence, so we are a company specializing in energy storage system, and we've been actually active in the Polish market since the very first capacity market action in 2022. We've been growing our local team ever since, and I'm happy to be a part of the growth team responsible for Poland and other Eastern European markets. So my focus is on market development and policy. I spend a lot of time talking to developers, investors, banks, and policymakers. So I hear the challenges from all sides. So happy to share some of them with you today.
Amazing, Liliana. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to have you. As well, we have Jerzy Kuźmiński with us from Goldbeck Solar. Good morning, Jerzy. Can you tell us where you're from, what you're doing here? Just a minute presentation, introduction.
Hi, hello. It's very nice to be here. I was about to copy what Liliana will say, but it was definitely too long, so I will not, because the introduction is the most difficult part, I would say. So I'm a sales manager at Goldbeck Solar Polska. We are present on the Polish market for more than 4 years now, and in general, Goldbeck Solar exists for almost 25 years already.
Perfect. Well, Jerzy, that was a pretty good introduction. So thank you so much for joining us. It's really good to have you as well. So moving on, let's start with the presentation. So Jerzy, whenever you are ready, I'm going to ask you to set up your slides. In the meantime, thank you everyone who's joining us from different parts. I saw Spain. Did I see something else around here? But thank you so much for joining us, everyone, wherever you are. And yeah, let's keep the chat with more comments. So I see that your presentation slide is already up. So Jerzy, whenever you're ready, the floor is yours.
Perfect. So I would like to give you a brief description of what I would like to start with. As you know, BESS market in Poland is beginning to grow, let's say. I think we've already said that a year ago, and probably 2 years ago, we also said that. So maybe this is the year when actually something will change. So I will try to be as fast as possible. So Christina, if I'm speaking too long, just push me, and then I will move on to the next topic. So let's start with a very brief sum up of this year's historic moment, which is June 2025. Basically, we've generated more energy from renewables than from coal, and I think it's a significant milestone, and it shows that the renewables are growing in Poland drastically. But we can be very optimistic always, but there are also some downsides. And as you already know, we have lots of problems with grid connection capacity, which is very specific to the Polish market. And I think we're going to see a drastic change once the BESS market will move forward. But for that, we need to wait just a little bit. I will tell you why in a moment. So we can always say that the biggest issue is with the DSO and TSO withholding the grid connection, and because of that, we cannot do as much of renewables as we want. But the truth is that they have their own rules, they have their own regulations, they are very professional people, and they need to check everything before they let us connect a new project. So I think there's a balance between saying that it's a fault of the SO-TSO and actually thinking why it's happening. We see some progress, of course. We see some declarations of the Polish regulatory that they want to improve the process of getting a grid connection conditions. And of course, there are always some new ideas, but until we're going to see some signed declarations, it's hard to see in which way it's going to go. So basically, the idea to let's say make the grid connection conditions approval easier is to create a fast track process for projects under 10 megawatts. That would be nice. Establishing clear timelines for receiving the grid connection condition, and standardizing the process throughout the whole Polish DSO. I think it would be a good idea, but we're gonna see. We're gonna see what will happen in the next couple of months, maybe a bit longer. But moving forward, I think we've got two major, let's say, events that basically will push us to more investments in BESS technology. We've got, from one side, capacity market, which was, let's say, very positive for BESS projects. It changed, and it will change drastically more, but Liliana will tell you more about it. From my perspective, from an EPC perspective, what we see now is the curtailment crisis that basically is happening in Poland right now. And this is something that from one side is kind of bad, I would say. Everybody was counting on very nice, profitable projects in PV. And now we've got almost 36% of an increase over the year of the energy that was curtailed, which basically kills the Excel file, I would say. But there is a possibility to save it, of course, and that possibility is BESS. So I think even if it's something pessimistic, it's gonna drive the BESS investments in the nearest future, definitely. So I think adding battery storage system to the existing PV will be a must in the next couple of months. I've already heard that a year ago that all the PV installations should already invest in BESS. So far, not many installations were introduced. on the Polish market. I will tell you a bit more why in the next couple of minutes. But I think that the drive for the best technology will go more into the PV business than to standalone projects itself. But we've got also the biggest subsidy in Poland that is right now, let's say, ongoing. The deadline for submission was end of May this year. And everybody now is expecting for some good results. We're going to see what will be most favored by the subsidy. Will it be few big projects or maybe smaller ones? Nobody knows. So we'll see probably in a couple of months. That should also drive the storage investments in the nearest future. But it's also a pro and a con, I think. So basically, what we see on the market, and I think that's the biggest challenge of an EPC, is the investor caution. So let's say a year ago, everybody was saying that it's early, the technology is not so well tested in Poland. We don't see many projects, so it's hard to invest. We don't know how to do it. What components to use, what's the difference between the different suppliers. And I think that the conversation is now shifting a bit, because last year we were speaking about the technology. This year we are speaking about the way to build best projects. And from my perspective, I've seen a lot of changes. A lot of investors not asking why should I invest in BESS, but rather how should I build it and what supplier should I use. So I think we're shifting, and probably soon we're going to see some nice investments on the Polish market. But then we've got some confusion about the business model, because for the banks, it's still hard to calculate what's going to be profitable and what's not going to be profitable. I think it was the same at the beginning of the PV business. The banks didn't know how to calculate it. What should they include in their calculation, their risk? So I think now we're also moving with the profitability calculation of BESS, which is important. We've got Chinese market disruption. So what I understand by it is lots of suppliers saying that we're top in the world, number one in Europe. Wherever you go on fairs, you see all those huge banners saying we're the best of the best, and we've supplied hundreds of gigawatt of hours of best technology, which is cool. You open a refrigerator and there is a guy selling you a best container. And I think this is also problematic for the investor, because he hears very opposite definitions, and everybody is saying, this is BESS. But what is BESS? And this is very important. And I think Liliana will tell you a bit more about it. But there is a huge difference between one supplier and the other supplier, and what they are selling and what they are trying to sell. Like a container with cells in it, it's not storage system. It's just container with cells. And I think this is something that the investors are also trying to understand and find a way in between. Then we've got different, let's say, perspective regarding the subsidy. So I heard at the beginning of the year, and I quoted many projects. I heard from many investors that, we want to construct a nice BESS project this year because it's important for us. We did the calculation. We are ready for it. And it was, let's say, January, February, March. And then suddenly the subsidy came up, and everybody said, yes, sure, we're going to construct it, but let's wait a little bit because maybe we're going to get a subsidy. So, we're going to wait half a year and see what will happen. So I guess once the subsidy will be released, then of course we're going to have 1,000 projects ready to build with everybody saying, yeah, we're building. So maybe there's going to be a situation where there will be no construction companies able to fulfill the demand. So that can also be very, very interesting. Then we've got, I wouldn't say issue, but some price difference that the market needs to establish, because there are many different opinions on the market in the internet. It's very easy to write in ChatGPT, tell me what's the price of best system, and you've got funny numbers. Sometimes it's $50, sometimes it's $150, sometimes it's $300 per kilowatt hour. And the question is, what do you mean by best system? And I think this is very important for the investor to understand what you are buying when you say BESS. I think we are in the process right now where people start to think about it more, trying to learn more about it. And I think it will also be a very positive in the nearest future. And then we've got maybe not a confusion, but a difference between the scope of work that we want to have on our project. Let's say we can have a full EPC, which basically is an option, having one contractor who will deliver the whole supply, who will deliver all the BESS systems, the PCS, the MV skid, auxiliary trafo, switchgear, and all that. And basically, you received a finished project up and running, or you can try to find savings and do some part of the work yourself. And in that case, you would split the scope of work into BOP, which is balance of plant, and BESS supply, and maybe PCS and then VSKIT supply. It's also an option. I would say both options have pros and cons. It's very hard to say, oh no, only this option, only EPC is the best. Of course, I would say EPC has its pros, and that's what I would always encourage. But I cannot say that the BOP system doesn't have its value. It's everything depends on the investor, and then that's more on capex side. But then we also have the opex side, which is very important as well. And I've seen lots of calculations done only from the capex side, and people forgot about opex, which is more significant than in the PV plant. And this is something that you need to take into consideration once you choose the supplier and you choose the contractor. And I think that the most important part here is the long-term service agreement, either with the supplier or with an O&M provider who can deliver the full maintenance of the site, because the maintenance for the batteries, it's not only containers and that's it, because then we've got all other equipment that also needs to be maintained, that also needs to be checked, and this is also important to include it in the overall cost of the whole system. Now, the difference between EPC and BOP, I would say, is significant, because then in the EPC model, you've got one single point of responsibility. You've got one contact, one contractor who will deliver the whole package. Of course, you can say, sure, but if something goes wrong, then it can go wrong either in the EPC or BOP, of course. But in the EPC contract, you've got many clauses that you can save the project or do the damages for the main contractor. In the BOP, there's always a risk. Who is taking responsibility for what? The difference between the scopes, and to find a way to split it between the 2 or 3 parties, it's always difficult. And if you've got, for example, delay in the supply chain, then the BOP contractor will say, yeah, come on, but it's not our problem, it's totally on you. In case of EPC, you basically avoid this issue because it's on the main contractor's scope. So you've got, let's say, warranty simplicity, which is also kind of important because you've got one point of contact who will manage the whole warranties within the system. And the containers, PCSs, MV stations, and so on, so on. If you've got high voltage, then of course the substation as well. You may say it's also faster in the EPC. Of course, it depends. It depends on the approach. It depends on your technical knowledge, how many people you've got as an investor, how many people you've got in your company. Are you capable of checking everything? I think it will be a very difficult decision for the investor which way to go. And I think that a good advisory is needed here to choose the right way. Then there's also institutional preference where banks, of course, it's easier for a bank to calculate the risk and to calculate the cost of the whole process when you have only one EPC contractor. Of course, it's easier, but sometimes easier is not better. In the BOP, of course, you can do some savings. It is possible, but as I mentioned before, you need a proper technical team in the background in order to provide it. You've got an integration risk because there are 3 parties. Let's say everything needs to work smooth. Everyone needs to know what he is responsible of and what to deliver in the end. So basically, getting to a conclusion, I believe that the Polish market will change in the next couple of months. We will see many best projects, maybe so many that there will be a problem with the contractors. Maybe. I know that the suppliers are waiting for it as well because we've got lots of capabilities for now. But maybe if we're going to deliver the gigawatt hours that are promised, then the suppliers will have a problem as well to maintain the supply. So we will see. I am very curious. I am waiting for it. And yeah, let's be optimistic. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jerzy. I have some comments saying maybe. You never know.
Yeah, true.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Jerzy, for this great presentation. Moving on, we have Liliana. So whenever you are ready, Liliana, feel free to share your screen.
Absolutely. I hope it works well. Let me know.
Yes, perfect. We see it now.
Great. Okay, so I will skip my introduction. Let's move to just a couple of sentences again about Fluence, and I want to also address what Jerzy just said about the suppliers and like we have a lot to choose from in European market recently. I just wanted to highlight that we in Fluence, we are a US European company. We are providing fully integrated energy storage solutions. That means hardware, software, and services together. It's important for different reasons, but also what's important is, again, those numbers and experience that really matters. So we do have over 40 gigawatt hours across more than 50 markets deployed or contracted already. And so here, as you can see, the goal is not just to deliver batteries, the containers with cells, but to transform the way we power our world to create a more sustainable future. And this presentation is also about why Poland needs energy storage. So without further ado, the agenda for today is I will talk you through renewable ambitions for Poland. I will mention also the future build out, how I will see this, and also what are the IRR expectations. And then we will move to capacity market deep dive and regulatory bottlenecks, but also how to tackle them. And I will finish with a topic that is, I think, super important, but it got less attention. It's cybersecurity. So let's start. So Poland's energy transition is speeding up, as it was said in the first presentation. So battery storage right now is no longer a nice to have. It's actually strategic, and renewables are booming. The grid is struggling to keep it. So the first half of 2025 alone, actually Poland had to curtail over 600 gigawatt hours of solar power. We had dispatch orders issued for let's say 25 separate days in April, to give you the example. So the clean energy going to waste. And yes, storage is the fix. So basically, it turns the excess energy into value. It keeps the grid stable, and also it helps Poland cut its reliance on gas. And it's not just about today, it's also about securing the future. So as you can see here, renewables are really expected to grow from Poland from the current 27% to 52 till the end of the decade, but even up to 78 in 2050. And at the same time, what Polish government is planning to do is they want to triple gas-fired capacity from the current 4 gigawatt installed, even to 11 gigawatts of gas installed by 2030. And even though gas is mostly imported from Poland for Poland, it's expensive and also it's geopolitically risky. And that's the problem. So long-lived gas plants could lock Poland into fossil dependency and basically threaten our climate goals. And also the economics are shifting fast. So right now, solar plus storage is already cheaper than gas. And also I think that wind plus storage will follow shortly next year. So again, storage is a smarter bet. It's cleaner, it's more secure and most cost effective, and it's much needed in the Polish market. So I think the takeaway from here and from the graph is that we need to treat energy storage on par with renewables, because without it, the energy transition is simply is not gonna work. And here again, I want to highlight at the same time that storage, it's actually not about only integrating renewables, it's also about keeping the grid stable, secure, and future-proof. So the reality is that Poland's grid is aging, and nearly half of it is actually over 40 years old, and it's struggling to keep up with the surge in renewables and with storage. So the Polish TSO PSE has issued the grid connection conditions for over 73 gigawatts of BESS, including over 8 gigawatts of BESS in July alone. But it sounds great. So there is like a huge hunger for storage. But most of these grid connections are conditional, tied to the upgrades that may not be completed even until after 2034. So basically, developers face now approval timelines of like over 400 days. And without the huge investments in grids, many projects will never be built. So I want to highlight how the grid access is still the biggest bottleneck for BESS. And not only for BESS. So basically, Poland needs to integrate, as it was said before, over 90 gigawatts of renewables by 2040, and still the transmission capacity is lagging. So there's like a huge investments plans, not only by PSE, but even the McKinsey actually says we'll need over 120 billion by 2050 to get the job done. And still, I want to highlight that this is where also storage can step in. So BESS can delay costly grid upgrades by covering peak demand, reducing congestion, and making better use of existing infrastructure. And the clear example is the project we actually built in Germany for TenneT. This project, this BESS, actually helps to move wind power from the northern Germany, where it's generated, to south, where it's actually needed. And it cuts the dispatch cost, it lowers final energy prices for consumers as well. So just like here, the Germany's Grid Booster program for TenneT, batteries can act also as a fast response buffers, relieving the transmission bottlenecks. So again, key takeaway from this is storage isn't just supporting the grid, it's also strengthening it. And it's time we treat it also like a backbone for the Poland's energy future. Now let's have a look how Poland's energy storage market is booming. And also I want to highlight that I think we are just at the beginning. So what's the forecast? The forecast up to 2030 is that we'll have at least 6 gigawatts and around 20 gigawatt hours, as you can see on the graph, of the front of the meter utility scale storage. This is the forecast by analysts. I'm more optimistic than this, and it is also because we are already ahead of that curve. I think more than 20 gigawatt hours is already contracted with capacity markets, and the growth is expected to be really fast. So as of last year, we had 25 megawatt hours connected on a utility scale. And now we want to scale it up to over 20 gigawatt hours by 2030. So as Jerzy said, we're only at the very beginning of the journey. And I think the investor appetite is quite strong, actually. So as of September, as I said, as of actually August, we had this over 70 gigawatts of grid connection conditions. So it means that the appetite is here, but the question is how many of this project will actually be built, and how many are just paper projects waiting to be sold, because that's also the problem. And yes, with the awarded capacity over from 22 to 24 gigawatt hours, I think I'm very optimistic that most of those projects actually will be built. I know that some people in the industry are skeptical about it, but from what I hear from the conversations that I have with developers, banks, and also with the TSO, I think most of these projects are actually moving forward right now. It's also worth to highlight that the TSO has set the official target of having at least 10 gigawatt of storage by 2030. So it's encouraging, right, to see that PSE is openly supporting this goal rather than only coal and gas. Also in parallel, I think recently the Ministry of Energy proposed this anti-blackout package after the blackout in Spain to strengthen also Polish resilience. So the details of this package are actually still emerging, but it's likely to benefit BESS, especially I think that the systems can support synthetic inertia, and we are all very clear about it. But it's not only this. So there's this think tank, the Polish think tank Energy Forum, that forecasts that even we should have at least 17 gigawatts and 70 gigawatt hours of storage that are actually crucial for Polish system ban by 2030. So again, the bottom line here is that the market is moving fast, and it isn't just my view, right? So it's really grounded with the conversation we are having, and Poland is scaling up, and storage should be the head of it. Now let's dive into the reality of the Poland's capacity market and what it really means for BESS. So Poland, I think right now is one of the hottest European storage market. As I said before, twice, more than 20 gigawatt hours is already constructed with the capacity market, and the capacity is expected to grow significantly, right? But it's important to mention that so far we've had 3 capacity market actions with BESS participation starting in 2022. So this include the T-5 actions that we are having. So basically the first delivery will be starting in 2027. and the projects that will be online basically by the end of next year. Across those 3 rounds that you can see here, altogether 4.4 gigawatt of BESS was secured. But I wanted to highlight that that's the derated capacity, right? And that was a mix of 2-hour and 4-hour systems. So the real figure, if you calculate it, including the different capacity factors that we had, we will be closer to 7 gigawatts or around 24 gigawatt hours. I'm saying around because still we don't know exactly the share between 2-hour and 4-hour projects. And of course, the capacity factor is 50% lower for the 2-hour system. But here's the issue. So derating factors have collapsed from, as you can see here, 95% for the first 2 actions for the delivery for the years 27-28, down to the rating of around 61% for the delivery for 2029. And now, unfortunately, for the last capacity market round that is happening in this December, the derating factor was announced to be only around 13%. So this drop really raises serious concerns. It risks basically also, as I wanted to highlight, breaching the principle of technological neutrality, especially that the Polish TSO is actively promoting right now gas peakers, unfortunately. So it's not happening in isolation. Actually, Poland's recently also announced supplementary capacity market action, which was even exempted from the European CO2 limits, openly favoring gas and other high emission units, basically to keep them eligible for the state support until 2028. And another thing I want to highlight that this current derating factor of around 13%, it's for the 4-hour system, right? And compared to other countries in Europe, this aligns with like 1-hour system. So it's far below benchmark in UK, Italy, Belgium, where the 4-hour BESS gets at least 30, but even up to 67%. And also it is widely inconsistent with the piped hydro storage that in Poland, in the same action for the same year, received over 90% of the derating factor. We highlighted these concerns to TSO, so I also wanted to highlight that we are very active and we talk with TSO. We were not successful this time, to be honest. But again, that's a different story. The key takeaway here is that the capacity market will be still seen as a bonus. It won't be the core revenue stream as it was used to be before, but still it will be like important also backup for banks to have. But again, the question should be, so what's next? So as I said, we'll have this last round of capacity markets in December, and what's next? What's next is basically the flexibility support scheme. And I left this slide half blank because honestly, that's where the policy still is. Like nothing is confirmed yet. So what we know is that the capacity market here is to stay in Europe, but under the new EU rules, and it will only cover the adequacy. So just making sure that there's enough capacity on the system, and the flexibility part, it's going to be handled separately. And recently, I think over the summer, ACER, so the EU's energy regulator, actually published the guidance on how to support this. And basically, all the member states right now need to set the flexibility targets by 2026 and then have those schemes up and running by 2027. But here's the catch. So you cannot have both, right? The capacity market and the flexibility scheme in parallel. And that would mean paying twice, right, for the same thing. So the two will need to be clearly separated. And again, this Polish think tank Forum Energy, the Energy Forum, has proposed a smart approach. So basically split future actions into firm capacity for long steady supply and also the flexible capacity for fast balancing. And I think it's very good for BESS because it also it will open the door, I think, also to smaller players, but also hybrid systems. In Poland right now, the TSO is just starting even to think about what is the next step. So that's why the storage associations, together with us in the industry, it's working hard to actually shape the outcome. So I think it's time to act now. We are actually trying to secure at least 10 years of contracted revenue for BESS. And I think most of the industry agrees that this scheme should now include the performance and safety standards, basically to avoid the race from to the bottom. And it should also support the long duration storage. And again, here's the exciting part. This could finally unlock the new revenue streams for grid forming batteries, at least I think so. So basically recognizing the true value of the system. So again, key takeaway is that I think for BESS, this is still good news. I think it will really unlock a broader, more reliable stack of revenues, but of course, it won't happen on its own. We need to act now and bring policymakers with us. And let's talk briefly about the business case for BESS in Poland. So our internal analysis shows that IRRs are between 12 and 20%, of course, depending on many factors like the COD date, the system duration, the year of the capacity market entry. What's important is that if a project energizes before capacity market obligation, so basically it takes part in the supplementary action before the 17 years contract, it can gain an extra 2-3% of IRR. Also, because the revenues in Poland are highly front-loaded, so basically everyone right now is racing to get online as soon as possible. As it was said before, of course, the grid connection is still a bottleneck, so only a few players can really be early in the market, but the incentive's clear. Early energization means early returns, as it's really seen here on the graph. As you can see, also ancillary services are driving very strong revenues now, but of course, as probably you've heard it before, they will be likely saturated before the end of the decade. But still, they will continue to support the stack. And also, I think we're all very happy that Poland's recently also entered the Picasso platform, so basically a new stream of revenue for BESS. And again, I think with all the changes upcoming, so the coal decommissioning, the renewables ramping up, I think the volatility will stay high. So I think the arbitrage is still a lot of potential in it. And again, the capacity market, even with a lower derating factor, I think it still remains attractive. As I said, not as a core revenue stream, but it will unlock like low cost financing for banks. And a couple of words about the EU-backed scheme. So the subsidy scheme that was actually introduced already by Jerzy. I wanted to touch on a couple of points here. So first of all, it was meant to attract and to build around 5 gigawatt hours of new energy capacity, right? But it was so heavily oversubscribed that we received I think the applications for 20 gigawatts or almost 22 gigawatt hours. So more than 600 applications only for this one scheme. We will know the results in December. By December, the contracts need to be signed. So let's hope that Enphos will reveal who is the winner. And then, as was said before, we expect a lot of customers to start looking for suppliers and EPC contractors on a short notice. I also noticed that a lot of developers are preparing right now. They are kind of sure they will get this, so they start to prepare the tender. But again, all the decisions are kind of on hold. Also, one important thing to note, some developers applied for both, actually the capacity market and this EU-backed scheme, because this is legally allowed, but worth to point out that the supports cannot be combined. Now let's move into some of the barriers, but also I want to highlight how we can actually approach the Polish market and overcome the barriers. So as it was said before, the grid connection, right, the queues. But it's not only that the grid connection dates are approved, it's not it, right? So actually delays still happen even if the grid connection date is approved. And actually it happens also for the projects that actually have already capacity markets. It's not the investor's fault at all. It's usually on the operator's side. So basically, some projects that secure the contract are granted the connection condition and still face the setbacks, basically due to slow grid investments. And the result is that investors can't be sure when actually the projects will be energized, making it very hard to plan for technology delivery and for execution. And since operators aren't legally accountable right now for this, these delays are kind of like, but everything is on investors. And we see this quite often because the investors come to us and they want to buy technology, but they don't know exactly for when. So I think it's really, really a huge issue right now. The other thing is the permitting. Permitting for BESS are very unclear right now in Poland. So we know that all systems that are bigger than 20 kilowatt hours need a building permit, but the standards like fire load parameters that they hear every week, it's required for battery. It completely doesn't make sense because fire load parameter is suitable for buildings. Because still BESS is treated as a building in Poland. So there's a lot of unclarity about it, and also about fire safety and cyber standards. For fire safety, to give you the examples, I've heard that some planners, let's say, require water hydrants on site and water supply on site, which completely doesn't make sense for storage. Like we think that water shouldn't be used for storage at all. We don't use this in our guidelines, and it shouldn't be used, but that's another story. But anything, I mean, the takeaway here is that we need to educate the market and firefighters how BESS should be treated. And finally, grid forming. So I think everyone is talking about it, but that's it. So there's still a lot of confusion in the Polish market, and many developers believe grid forming is already required. It's actually not right now, but the grid code is also not very clear about that. And the other issue is that how grid forming services will be actually remunerated in the future. So there's no clear payment mechanism yet. And we don't know whether it will be like it was implemented in UK. They have this Pathfinder project, which uses kind of like a carrot approach, so basically offering bonus for providing stability services, or it will be like a stick approach, so basically penalties for not being able to provide grid forming. And having said that, we know these barriers, but also what we can do to turn them into opportunities. So I think with the right partner, actually, they can become even a competitive advantage. So I think what you need in the end is trusted, flexible partner that can help you navigate with all the uncertainty, meaning offering tailored delivery times, COD flexibility, and prioritization when timelines shift, because trust me, timelines shift a lot. The other thing is local market leadership. So basically teams with deep regional knowledge, and again, the ones that actively engage with regulators and shape policy and basically staying upfront all the regulations. And last but not least, the future-proof technology. So basically here in this case, grid forming ready, built to the highest safety standards. So not just meeting them, but also setting a new standards. And again, the service. So with strong performance guarantees. So basically this ensures your investment is resilient and compliant from day one, even if the regulations are not so clear from day one. And lastly, cybersecurity. So why storage must be treated as critical infrastructure? So I'm not sure if all of you heard it, but the recent news is that actually Poland is the most targeted country for cybersecurity incidents in the world right now, with over 450 hacktivist incidents in Q2 alone. And we know that Ukraine's wartime grid defense showed us what happens when cyber attacks hit the critical infrastructure. So the lesson is clear, I think. The resilience must be built from the start. So here you can also see on the left the map of cyber attacks on the energy sector. It is from 2023, but now it looks much, much more complex. And again, battery energy storage systems are now central to grid stability, but they are still very overlooked in cybersecurity policy. And I know that you can tell me that the European Union's this NIS2 directive is raising the bar. It is, but also the implementation is right now very patchy. So Poland is among 19 member states that are actually warned for failing to truly transpose this NIS2 directive. So it's not just a regulatory issue. I think it's a strategic one. So we need secure by design systems. We need trusted and we need diversified supply chains. And also coordinated regulation on the EU level, because I think local vulnerabilities in Europe can really trigger the continent-wide crisis. And we really treat storage as a critical infrastructure. So our systems are built with really cybersecurity at the core, from hardware to software, and with defense in-depth architecture. And I think the key takeaway is that you cannot buy container with cells, right? It's not that if you buy like a secure EMS, the system will be secure. No, it's not. And you need like integrated solution with defense in-depth architecture for the system to really be secure and ready for critical infrastructure. So I will leave you with this question. How do we ensure energy security while transitioning to Polish energy system? So to sum it up, the transformation ahead is massive, right? So the renewables are expected to reach around 70% of Poland's mix very soon. We're gonna invest more than 130 billion euro in just 10 years in energy transition. At the same time, coal demand could fall by 80%, fundamentally reshaping also the mining sector. And in this picture, I think energy storage has a unique value proposition. So it's not just about balancing renewables anymore. It's about security and independence. And storage is becoming an instrument by this of national security. And Poland's challenge, it's not just to become Europe's storage capital, like it's not about winning any race. I think it's about keeping also the infrastructure secure and independent, and that's the task in front of all of us. And that's it from my side. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Liliana, so much for that overall. I think complemented with Jerzy, we have a really good look on what's happening in the Polish energy BESS market and what we think will happen, since a lot of things are still unclear and we're yet to meet the requirements. So there's only one question for you, Liliana. Take your time to read it. In the meantime, Jerzy, we did talk about this in one of our calls, but there's a lot of talking about data centers. Liliana, feel free to also answer after Jerzy. What do you think is the future of data centers in Poland, in the Polish market? Is there any room for them?
I think yes. I think they will be crucial. And in overall, I would say the sites with huge energy consumption. These will be crucial for the Polish economy, but for that we need proper stability of the energy system, and that's where BESS is important. And again, combining BESS with PV or with wind, I guess it's a win-win situation, and it's still way cheaper than the construction of new power plants, huge ones. way faster. And even if the administrative decisions are still, let's say, difficult to overcome, it's still faster than constructing a new power plant.
So we could say that the future is hybrid in Poland?
The future is hybrid. I think we are focusing I seen also in the comments that we are focusing very much on the standalone systems. And they are important, of course. They will stabilize the market. But from my perspective, from an EPC perspective, and we also, as Goldbeck Solar, we also have our own plants. So we know how to operate PV plants, how it works, how to make money on it. And also we have problems with curtailments. We see that hybrid is the solution right now. It's BESS is not a separate project. It's another component that you need to add to your renewable project.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Liliana, would you like to add anything to the comment of data centers?
I'm just replying to my comments for data
Okay.
centers. I would only say that Fluence is currently not really into this topic as we focus mostly on the larger scale, utility scale storage. So we focus on the bigger scale storage, so not there yet.
Okay, good. Well, there is a question that I think I see that you're answering. Do you prefer to answer it live or?
Oh yeah, so yeah, about the derating factor and could Fluent explain? So it's not about Fluent, really. It's not us setting this derating factor. It's the Polish TSO that decided to keep and favor gas, basically, which I said it's very unfair on so many reasons because it violates the EU, the technology neutrality even. So. What can I say? I responded to the consultation. I was really fighting to keep it more, let's say, fair, but we failed. So it will be 30%. And the goal is, I mean, official response by the TSO is that BEST cannot really keep the security for the Dunkelflaute to keep the security for a couple of hours. But the real reason is the support for gas speakers.
Okay, well, thank you, Liliana. Next question, Jerzy. I saw that you marked it from Nicola. Expected full EPC price for BESS megawatt.
Yes, it's.
The
I would
hard
say it's
one.
the best. Yeah, the best question always. What's the price? Come on, man. What's the price? And I will answer as always. You know, depends on the project. And in this case, it depends on the project very much because we've got very different approaches, and we've got the price for the best system. We've got the price for the PCS, MV-skid, and all that. And then we've got the point of connection, which is defining the price in the end and the length of the final cable, let's say, that will change drastically. But to be honest, we see right now in Poland, we see two options. We see either 2-hour system or 4-hour system. I would say I had a nice meeting with one of the investor and we've presented our offer. And the guy said, yeah, but we did some research, and we've seen like a price for a best system, $50, per kilowatt hours. And I said, all right, well, that's a very interesting price, but what are you buying? And, they answered, yeah, we're buying best system. And I said, cool, but what's in it, because my price is a full price, a complete price. What we calculate is the building permit or resubmitting the building permit, then the execution design, then the as-built documentation, of course. Then we've got the site preparation, then we've got the supply of BESS, then we've got the supply of PCS, MV-skid, auxiliary trafo, and so on, all the cabling, all the work on the site, fencing, CCTV, SCADA system, EMS system, and then when you combine it, then I can tell you that this is the full price. And right now, just to give you an idea of a price, we see more or less a price for around 200, 220 euros per kilowatt hours of the complete system for 2-hour system, and around 180, 190 for the 4-hour system. But again, it's just a number, Once I see a project with the grid connection, with the environmental decision, if, of course, we exceed over 1 hectare, then I can give you a final price. And of course, the details are the crucial here.
Yeah, absolutely. Go and contact Jerzy. He'll give you a,
Sure.
a better, a more elaborated answer because it depends on a lot of things. But thank you for answering that question. So last question goes to Liliana. Jerzy, feel free to later dive in if you want. But Liliana mentioned she wanted to answer this question. So what's your expectation of contracting revenue streams for hybrid projects? Is there any appetite from off-takers for hybrid PV plus BESS PPA?
Yes, actually, I think this market is really starting to boom right now. Everyone talks about it. There's a lot of banks, a lot of meetings with banks and with optimizers as well. And throughout last couple of months, a lot of optimizers are entering Polish market and they are offering the floors for such co-located project as well. There's growing growing knowledge that actually this offtake agreements are needed. Otherwise, the PV is not going to survive. So I think we are at the beginning of the road, but both the optimizers and the banks are very much into this conversation.
Perfect. Thank you. Jerzy, would you like to add anything to this question?
Well, from our perspective, as an EPC, we kind of invented our own calculation system for BESS and adding a BESS to PV. But what we are focusing on is strictly megawatt hour that we can push either later on the day or in the morning. And the financial part is not what we do. We do the construction part. I can do capex, opex, and I can prove how many megawatt hours you can push forward. This is the main part. How to make money out of it? Well, for me, calculation is easy. For example, if you've got 100 days of curtailment of your PV system, then adding BESS, you've got plus 100 days of revenue, and not for the price of PV, but higher one. What number? I don't know. I cannot tell you. We're not the energy traders guy, but we can definitely tell you that you're saving 100 days during the year.
Okay, following the question that you wanted to reply and we can finish the webinar. What percentage front of meter projects versus hybrid are you seeing in Poland right now? And from that economic model, how do you see that commercially being applied from a PPA's perspective?
Well, for now, we don't see those projects. We see a hunger for those projects, but not yet operational. But in the future, I see, let's say, 99.9% of hybrid projects, because, as I mentioned before, a BESS system will be another component. It's like a module, it's like an inverter, or the weather station. The PV won't make sense without a BESS system.
Okay, perfect. Liliana, is there anything else you wanted to add before we close the webinar regarding this question?
I think I'm good. I can only say that if you have any questions about specifics of the BESS, I'm happy to answer them. Also, I left my email, so feel free to reach out. I also saw a question somewhere that the concern that I questioned the safety of the gas peakers for the geopolitical risk, while the BESS comes from China mostly. I think it's a very good concern, and that's why I also talk about cybersecurity, that we need to make sure that BESS is also not only from China, diversify supply chain, and without the, let's say, controls from not only from China, I would say from countries of concern. So let's keep our energy system safe, also looking at storage. Absolutely.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much, Liliana and Jerzy, for a great webinar, great interaction, and the conversations have to keep going. There's a lot to talk about, but you have formidably set the tone. So thank you so much, both of you. We will have more webinars in regards to our next event in Poland in February, the 25th and 26th in Warsaw. we will tackle tons of these topics and more that we will be seeing in future webinars. So feel free to ask us questions, log in, whatever you need to. We are here to help. And Jerzy and Liliana, we hope to see you very, very soon at one of our events or another webinar. So thank you so much for being part of this first webinar. And we hope to see everyone very, very soon. So everyone take care, be safe,